Welcome to the Starting Over podcast. I'm your host, Edward Shelton, aka Dark Logos, and this is the show where we look at the strategies, tactics, and mechanics behind the game of heroclix. Today's show is going to be a little bit interesting, a little bit complicated, a little bit of what the heck. So I was over on the Shots Fire podcast page and pretty much saw this post, and this guy is like, hey, the games is expensive. And I'm going to summarize that up. And so I'm going to tackle that. I've recorded something previously. And in that process, talking with my good friend Tom, we had an additional conversation which made me sort of scrap the old episode and try to re-record. And he gave me an interesting insight that I didn't think about, and I'm going to sort of get into that a little bit later. But primarily what we're going into is the idea that being competitive is super expensive, and it's play to win, and that's the only way that you can do well at this game. And I don't think that's true. Let me rephrase that. I think that's partially true. And I'm going to go into why that's partially true. Now, when I would argue is pay to win, I would say is the best way I could say it when it comes to heroclix is the upper limit used to be I'm dropping $600 on a team. And I have everything that I needed. Like with WinJet, that pretty much was pay to win. Like, because there were so many elements that you needed to have, plus have money to buy, that you couldn't use certain substitutions for WinJet. Whereas I would make the argument, if you had back in the day Sentry and Void, that super rare cost you $50, which wasn't that looking back then that was expensive, but now it's not. But if we sort of mark for inflation, it sort of was pay to win because there wasn't a lot in the game that could easily defeat it. Now there was things in the games that could defeat it, but not easily defeat it. And I think that's one of the key presuppositions that we have to look at in particular. And so one of the key elements that I like to sort of elaborate on is that, and this is something that the guy brings up, is that, most teams are south of $400, but that's still a lot of money. But I would like to come back and I would say it is a lot of money if you just went on eBay and you're buying everything again each time you're playing. Now, I know some folks will be like, what? This doesn't make sense, but it's real simple. All right, if I buy a lot of product blind and I get all the stuff that I want, okay, how much have I spent on what I want? Whatever you bought, what your buy blind cost was. If you get lucky and get everything you want in 5 boosters or 2 boosters, that is your blind buy cost. Now, if I average that out and talk about relative market value of pieces putting into a team, that's a whole different subject, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit later. But if I'm going to talk about actual cost of me just going out there and buying blind, then I would say is like, I bought 2 cases, I got a complete CUR. What's my complete CUR cost? Functionally the cost of those 2 cases. Okay. If I have extras and I sell them, does that turn into profit? No, it just helps me recoup costs unless you have a lot of high cost items that you're trying to sell. Like you're not interested in most super rares or whatever else. Okay, so those elements are there. Then you're taking it a step further, and you're saying like, hey, going into like what I was going, sort of saying before, is if I look at what I got based off of the eBay prices, then what's the actual value or cost of what I have now? All right. So there's a couple elements, and I want to bring up about this. I'm a capitalist stock trader bastard that's trying to be part of the 1%. So if you don't like this sort of logic that I'm bringing up now, you could just fast forward a bit, okay? Because the socialist hippie version may be a little bit further down the road. So just feel free to skip through. I've been told I can't divorce politics from anything now, according to Jim, effing Sterling's son. So, yeah. I have to pick a side first, let you know what side I'm on, and then play the other side as well, and let you know that the capitalist people need to just leave. Because, we can't be adults anymore in this freaking society. It's freaking children. Anyway, going back. All right, so the perceived value of a character is really what the market is willing to pay for, not necessarily the prices that people set. So you want to more look at, instead of what people set the price for, more looking at the last few that were sold. Now, if there's rarity in terms of like, hey, there's like 5 left in all of eBay and all the world, yeah, then rarity gets to drive demand. I mean, like, this is like basic economic stuff. And that's why some things can get high. So if you are literally buying a team all the time, and it is, you're made of golden money. Okay, you're just made of golden money. Then every time you would play a team, if you're going out there and looking at the cost of buying a team, and it was determining the cost of the team, what you would find out is even if you played the same thing, due to rarity and just due to demand, your cost for that team completely can be wild and fluctuate, and also time of year. Okay, so let's break that down a bit. All right. Usually when pre-release, the most figures are close to the highest that they're going to be. Pretty close to the highest that they're going to be. Like, there's dumb people that just buy commons for like $3 each. Like, those type of people. Okay, they can't literally wait a week. All right, so those people, they're special. They're touched in the head, and they need help. All right. Now, if I sell during that time, I'm getting a crap ton of money. If I buy during that time, that's going to affect the overall cost of my team. So I'm pretty much playing double or triple the value of that piece. Now, if there is a convention or a major title event, then prices definitely go up for proven staples, not that experimental stuff. Okay, the experimental stuff is going to stay the way it is until after the tournament. Once you go after the tournament, then we're going to see like, oh yeah, wow, that guy, he played hella. You know who you are. He just ransacked through people and made top 4, or hell, like Unimind, full dial Unimind being a thing again. Okay? So, well, not again, being a thing. It never was a thing before. In 300, mind you. So, what ends up happening is during this period of time, and we all know this, the cost of goods goes up because there's a demand. Once the cons are over, usually the prices of things gradually go back down, including the con LEs and everything else. And you're stuck looking at, a brief lull period, and then in comes Rocktober, and then, Worlds and all this other stuff. Boom, Bob's your uncle. There's your, you can see leading up to those times how, leading up to those times that the prices will spike on goods. Less so more on Rocktober than Worlds, but still, prices will spike. So, rewinding all of that back, if I'm constantly buying a team, and I'm buying in January, the team might cost me $300. I buy in May, that team might cost me $500. I buy in August, that team might go back and cost me $250. If I buy, let's say near December, near Worlds, or in November before Worlds, then that team might cost me up to $500, maybe even $550. Okay. So, when we keep all those things into mind, when I buy something determines how expensive it is. If I trade and sell goods so that I can get something, it also determines how expensive it is. By saying, look at the market, if I buy it now, this is how expensive a team is. In reality, it's not necessarily showing you what the average player is paying for the team. What it's showing you is what a person wanting to play that team now would pay. Okay, now that's a completely different thing. Okay, this is a completely different thing, and I want a lot of folks to understand that. Okay, so then the next thing that comes in is folks will say, but I spent, people spend tons of money on the game, and so, they're winning because they spent all this money on the game, and I can't spend that much money on the game, so I can't compete. And this is where I would say is, to hell's you say. Really? You can't compete because you can't spend as much money on the game as who? What, Easton Brock? Because his dad has a store? Or Howard Brock because he has a store? How about Scott Crampton because he has a successful business? There's a whole lot of successful people that play heroclix that have nice jobs and nice businesses. And I'm not saying that to be like a jerk or envious. I'm actually happy for their success. I mean, that's sort of, again, the sign of an adult. You can be happy that people have things and not just be an envious little guy. But the thing that it comes into play is how you spend your money and the varied amount of teams that you can play and the investments you make can last you a lot longer than just randomly buying or buying without purpose or buying without vision. All right. If I said that my monthly budget for heroclix is $100, that means I'm spending $1,200 a year. I wish I spent that much. I would have saved so much money. Okay, I'm only spending $1,200 a year. Okay, there's easy ways that I can invest my money. I don't have to buy every month. That's number one. Number two, I can look at elements that are going to have a longer lifespan on my team, or teams that I want to play, or archetypes of teams that I want to play. So I'm not opening myself up to everything. Swarm Pog teams, I'm like, yo, man, I can't play most of those. Okay, but these beefy tip pole teams with some supports, oh, okay, I can do that. Oh, hey, a lot of colossal retaliators are getting released. Analyze the colossal retaliators, know which ones that you're going to buy or wait on. Look at teams that you have a high priority, towards leaning towards. Look at figures that you actually like to play. Like, I think that's one of the best thing about Roll20 is that you can play teams free 99 before you buy stuff on eBay. Like, that's the best part. Okay. You in your process of buying periodically, there are key things that I would always say that you would want to buy and prioritize. You would, if you see IDs, you need to analyze the IDs and save your money to buy IDs. The moment IDs are announced, just save your money to buy IDs. Getting the figures for the IDs, that can come later because the prices always fluctuate on those characters. Okay. Next, I would say is you will need to buy equipments. Equipments are really important in the state of the game. Since resources, please, dear Lord, don't let resources come back into this game. I could tolerate the Punisher van because it's functionally glorified object delivery system with a vehicle. But when we really look at it, we don't have any real old school like resources in the game. And so you need to buy the appropriate equipment and have them just in case. I have a goblin glider just in case. I have a venom harness just in case. There are some equipments that I don't have, like the pie that Joker has and the Tommy gun. I just don't have those. I've accepted that I'm not going to have those in the immediate future because of other priorities. And I don't have any figures that I really need those with, need to use those with. Okay. And then I would go do trouble alerts in maps, especially the consolation maps. So maps you pay 5 points for, location bonuses. Okay. If you refine those elements and you save your money for most of those elements, any other team that you want to make just about is going to cost you $200. Maybe a few will be $300 to $400 from that point on. And as you gradually just buy characters for your ID cards that you want to play or you find useful, their extended value will last their entire cycle until they retire because you're constantly going to be playing them. Like, we're constantly going to be playing trouble alerts. Let's not pretend that we're not. That trouble alerts are going to go away. We're constantly going to be playing ID cards until they go away. We're constantly going to be playing objects until they go away. Until they go away, we're constantly going to be paying for those location bonuses because they're just that good. I did a whole show about how they were not point costed appropriately. There we go. So we start to see some realities show up about real life cost, real life money over time, real life investment versus like fall reaction. Now, you can say, well, Edward, $1,200 is a whole lot of money. And I would argue, yes, it is. But let's say you have a Starbucks habit. I know coffee drinkers, they hate when you bring up the Starbucks. But let's say you have a Starbucks habit, and let's say you have a low to medium end Starbucks habit where per day you get one Starbucks drink, and that one Starbucks drink on the low end costs you $4. I'm just going to be nice. You're drinking a tiny little drink, okay, $4. Let's say you get a Starbucks drink during the month 20 times, okay. You don't get it every day, but some days you need that caffeine. Okay, let's say you repeat that process all throughout the year. So 12 times this year. That is $960 on coffee. Not a donut, not that little crappy, tasteless bread granule crap that they give you at Starbucks. Not that tasteless little pastry thing that they also give you at Starbucks. You've eaten at Starbucks, you know what I'm talking about. Half that stuff don't have flavor. It doesn't have any flavor at all. It is horrible. It's an abomination unto pastries. So anyway, you have spent $960 on a non-essential item. There you go. Now, some of you might say, but Dark Logos, I need coffee to get up in the morning. I'm like, no, you don't. There's neurological things that you can go in and talk to yourself about coffee, but realistically, what most people need is sleep. They don't need coffee. They need sleep. They need to get their butt to bed and stop trying to ride 6 hours sleep all the time or less. But that's a health thing. There's a lot of neurological things that happens when you don't get enough sleep. And I'm not necessarily talking about like CPAP or sleep deprivation stuff. It's just like not getting enough hours sleep. There's long-term consequences for that. So, anyway, right there at the low end of having the cheapo Starbucks drink, not necessarily drinking it every day, but pretty much drinking it, 20 times in a month, you're spending $960 in a year. Okay, let's just say you're a big guy like me. You like the grandes, and you're spending $8.50 a drink. Okay, so we're gonna go times 20, then times 12, and that's $2,000 that we spent on coffee and all that frappalapaloopa. It's just adding a lot of flabby on my stomach. So, how you perceive money and how you perceive the coming and going of money really influences on, is a team expensive? Okay. So, a lot of times, like I said, most people aren't told how to look at money, let alone given a basic overview of money, or basic concepts of how to apply money. And because of that, folks are pissed off because the people that know how to do it have a huge amount of leverage, all because no one was taught the rules of money. So there you go. All right, now, my hippie socialist people, I want to talk to you for a second. Okay. Hippie socialist people, there's this thing called, what is it? It's like communal businesses. Okay. Where there's like a leader guy, but it's mainly just the organization. Co-ops. Co-ops, that's it. That's what I'm thinking. There's a thing called co-ops. And you can go in and you can look at the structure of co-ops. And it allows hippie people to do things they love, like making coffee, or, growing organic produce and stuff. Those are noble pursuits. I'm not making fun of y'all at all. I like my organic stuff, pesticide free. I like that. You'll pay a little extra for that. I'm willing to do it. Okay, there are co-ops for that in a lot of cases to make sure that they just don't get screwed over. All right, and that there's some profit sharing. Credit unions, some credit unions have profit sharing. You know that? Why are you banking at Bank in America? Why? I don't get it. Most of them are using, Visa as your debit card. That's really all you need. Who you bank with? I mean, yeah. Oh, I pay for fees when I go to the ATM. Ooh. Don't worry. Freaking the digital world is coming soon. And ATMs and all that stuff are going to be a thing of the past. We're all going to be digital money here in 5 to 10 years, just about. I don't see currency lasting this long. Anyway, going on past my oh so political video, but going on, because of this thing called, leveraging community, your overall costs can be low if you have this thing called friends. And this wonderful thing called friends means that you can borrow things from them. It still requires you to invest, but at the same time, you're able to utilize unused resources that your friends are not using. And because of that, you're able to leverage the more friends you have, the more amount of figures and competitive power you're able to harness. More than Mr. Moneybags. Because if Mr. Moneybags over there is spending, let's just say he's spending, the Mocha Chocolate money. He doesn't do that. He doesn't do that, but he plays heroclix and he's spending $2,000 a year on heroclix. Guess what? That ain't enough. That's not enough to keep up. If you want to get all the weapons. Okay? So, because of that, you start asking yourself some questions. If I have 3 guys and we are putting in about $1,200 each per year into the game, and we're very strategic about what we play and we're very specific, the 3 of us could pretty much leverage a very nice sized collection. Okay? Now, all hyperbole aside, and joking, like I have to admit, going back, I've had, conversations on the show saying, look, the exceptional individual, those times are over when it comes to being competitive. And flat out, the same thing goes with money. The Mr. Moneybags days of heroclix is over. It's been over for a long time. I think a lot of people are now starting to realize that it's over. Okay? The best thing about heroclix now is teams. That's the best thing about heroclix is teams and community. Because once you start going into community sharing of assets and figures, then you see exponential growth of the individual. I have not seen it fail. So, for all of you people that are more communal, more like, I don't want to blow, my mortgage amount of money on this game, then you need to foster community, if not just for wanting to compete, but making it so that other people can compete. My local Kansas City group has a Facebook page. I'm not Facebook page. They do have a Facebook page, but they have a Facebook group. And before every Friday tournament, throughout the week, folks are asking to borrow stuff. I get texts like asking me if I'm coming and if people can borrow things from me. And if I'm not using it, I'm going to let folks have it. Why is that? Oh, because, what is a big threat? I can lose and not get a little plastic man that's worth $5? Or the fact that if I really do need that little plastic man, I could just go to the person that has it and ask to borrow it. Because again, we're adults. The wonderful, magical thing about maturity, you don't always have to be self-sufficient in everything. That's the thing. You can let other folks have some things. So, capitalist people and socialist people There's solutions. There are both solutions, and I feel that I've adequately presented your point and made fun of you both equally at the same time. All right, now going on to what my boy Tom said, and I think this is one thing when we talk about like the exponential cost of heroclix going up, and one of the main reasons the cost of heroclix is going up is the communalization of knowledge and saturation of knowledge among the average player. Okay? And this is a huge thing. This is a huge thing. So let's just say you have a guy that's never listened to this show, never heard of who Dark Logos is. Okay? They're more than likely going to know who Daniel Powell is. Let's just say you have somebody that doesn't know who Daniel Powell is, doesn't know who Edward Shelton is. They probably are going to know Aaron Cantu. If they don't know the three of us, they're probably going to know not two clicks from KO, Dial H from heroclix. If they don't know any of us, they're definitely going to know the Meta Lab. And if they don't know the Meta Lab, they would definitely know Glass Cabinet. Okay? At some point in time, if you go down the rabbit hole, you will find people that are going to give you knowledge, and in those conversations, it's going to lead you into a cross-pollination into the greater heroclix community. And in that, you're going to find more and more and more podcasts, and they're going to give you more and more and more information. And then all of a sudden, Edward says Starfire is great. Aaron Cantu and Aries says Starfire is great. Daniel Powell says it's not Unimind. I'm joking. Daniel Powell says Starfire is great. What's going to happen to Starfire stock? What's going to happen to Starfire stock? It's going to go up. And so, if before all this, you could say we go back to to like 2010, and there's a lot less tactical shows, and there's a lot less public information. And you're looking at realms about what's good and why. And you have less competitive tournaments. Then where you're being presented is, oh, that won worlds, so that is good. Then those handful of figures go up. Whereas now it's like, oh, that won a tournament. This is why it won the tournament. It did this, this, and this. Boom, I'm going to buy it. Its price goes up. Scarcity happens quicker. PJ plays it. The tastemaker. Boom, it goes up. If Patrick was still playing, the moment Patrick would be playing something, boom, it goes up. Daniel Powell wins with Starro. Boom, it goes up. Like Lockjaw seen on, 8 boards at top 16 at Worlds. Boom, it goes up. Like, all these things affect the cost of playing this game. So by having a healthy community, and I mean healthy in the sense of, if you want to get information, you can. You don't have to be like it was when I started, finding out about the freaking secret heroclix societies that you wish you could get in on. Okay? When all is said and done, you're stuck and you're looking at a plethora of information, a plethora of resources, a plethora of results. You can go and get the brackets of tournaments, find out what played what, figure out why it won just, through process of elimination. And then just be like, wow. So all these things are good. One thing I appreciate that Patrick was doing on Majestics CCG, new co-host dude. I forget your name. Um, I forget your name. I'm sorry. But they were pointing out like the how popular certain mechanics were across the state's tournaments among the winning teams, and so you saw like Groot was like a number one figure. And so you could ask yourself, well, why is Groot number one? Is it just because of the leadership? Is it because that the Walking Woods can help you equip? Wow, maybe it's because, Groot's Colossal Retail can help you also get more force out there, as the game progresses. Oh, but you might sacrifice Groot. Oh, look at that team. It had 3 perplexes and 4 probs. Maybe all the probs stopped Groot from being hit because he got his defense perplexed up by 2 and his attack perplexed up by 1. I don't know. Okay, like you can have those types of speculations if you want to. Okay, but that's still useful information by knowing, look, Groot is a really popular figure. So if you're building, you might want to say, hey, I might want to get a Groot. But also if you're building is, hey, I might want to have to deal with Groot. All right. And so as you have a hierarchy of personalities reinforcing what you should play, why you should play it, when you should play it, like what's good before retirement, what's good after retirement, potential picks coming up, spoilers, and then getting impacts of spoilers in the game once the figures come out. Like, of course, your market is going to take all that information and respond quickly and thoroughly. I still remember Nick Fury, and I called it. I was like, this dude is broken. He's going for $12 now. Buy an extra, and you're going to thank me later. And lo and behold, he went up to $50. Now, I could come back and say, that was lucky guess. And I could say that. But I can more often say it's like, no, it's clear cut that this figure is way better. Now, what's the difference between now and then? There's a lot more information. There's a lot more tactical podcasting, and there's a lot more voices to listen to that can immediately give us confirmation bias. Oh, this is good. Why? Because Aaron said it. Because Patrick said it. Because Edward said it. Because Dan said it. Because Nate White said it. Because Caleb Riddick said it. Because, Jamie Jordan said it. Like I could just list names. And and these are valuable names in the community. And because those players said that these figures are good, it raises its overall value. It just does. There's no ins, ifs, or buts about it. So the chances of getting in to competitive, buying standardized competitive equipment is a lot harder, just from a cost perspective. What isn't hard is to invent new tech. And it's a lot cheaper. It's a lot cheaper. So let's go into Tyler Spees for a moment. Tyler Spees with the Giganto Namor, before it won Worlds, I think the Giganto Namors were, because I had a teammate that bought a bunch. The Giganto Namors were going around like $10 each. They were $10 each. Now, I don't think you could get one for less than $30. So if you saw Tyler early on, and you're like, wow, that's a fun team. I think I'm going to play that. Okay. Or if you deem that you were that unlucky, quote unquote, and that you got 2 of them in your case, then you know what? Like if you got them early on, you got two of them in your case, your cost of getting into that team is really cheap. Once he won Worlds, the cost of all that stuff went up. Now, what fundamentally changed in the community? Nothing other than the information that Tyler won Worlds. If Tyler didn't win Worlds, and let's just say he lost to Easton in the finals, the cost would have still gone up. Maybe not as much, but the cost still would have went up. It's a finalist team. Okay, let's go to Easton's team. All right, and ask ourselves some very important questions. First off, what happened to the price of Green Arrow? Remember where everybody was sort of talking smack and saying Green Arrow was going to go away and not be part of the meta? Well, hey, all those people that sold their Green Arrows after the ID card retired, they probably were slapping themselves in the face because of Main Force Green Arrow. And Main Force Green Arrow caused a whole lot of problems for people. And the fact that he could just come up and pop a Unimine, who was still a valid, is still a valid tactical threat. So being able to just go in and pop a Unimind is a big deal. And then having a team that, makes it worth with Gotham City. So when we look, it's like, all right, why was that team good? Well, we saw it being good at Rocktober. So up before Worlds and before Rocktober, I'm betting the cost of Batgirl's Shadow of the Bat was a lot cheaper. Okay? And the same could be said for a good chunk of that team. And a lot of people were shifting away from Green Arrow. Then comes Tom Kerr playing the Gotham City team, being in the finals of October, bringing the power of Canadian land to Huntsville, Alabama, and scaring the crap out of people, thinking that the Canadians might actually win an American tournament. No, sir, we win Canadian tournaments. That's the joke. But realistically, what did it do? What did it do to the market? It raised the cost of Green Arrow back up. It raised the cost of Batgirl Shadow of the Bat. It also raised the cost of the Iceberg Lounge. I think Iceberg Lounge, Hacienda map. Okay. So now you're looking at that. Now Easton's playing this team. He's in the finals of Worlds, playing this team. And what happens? The price of all this stuff goes up. Not as much, but it still goes up. Why? This team just won it was in the finals of 2 championships. Now, some things have changed with equipment because Exospecs came in and, brought a whole new world. And don't you dare close your eyes, man, because this is a magic carpet ride all the way. I just need a genie in a lamp, But when we look at that team now is probably, maybe like a $300 team? That's if you bought everything new, like just everything now. But a good chunk of that team, you had most of that stuff lying around, or if you had any interest in that team whatsoever, you were able to get most of the components for cheap. Really cheap. Like the Fast Forces Penguin. If you got him when he was available in the Fast Forces, that hardly anybody liked until the freaking title trick was presented, you could have got him for 25 in the pack for $25. Super cheap. All right, so there are issues that come in that our knowledge has increased the value of things. And I don't even want to say it's like, behold, you have the knowledge of good and evil, and that's it. That's the consequences. It's more of we have been deluged with the blessing and curse of knowledge of competition. So in our quest for better and better efficiency, some things just lie to the side. And this is where I would come in is my hugest problem with WizKids currently is what makes something competitive in HeroClix. And it's really simple. Point cost and complexity. Point cost and complexity. Low points, high complexity, which automatically gives you an extreme advantage to higher rarity figures. And higher rarity figures are not designed to require lower level rarity figures. So the wave sort of balances out. So if you look at most competitive teams, over 2/3 of the main force in most teams are higher rarity figures. They're like you're lucky to see a rare in some teams, but most teams are super rare and up. Like that's the composite of their teams. And if you want to say like, but look, Dark Logos, what about the ID cards? Like really for their rarity, if you getting specifically that one that you want, yeah, it's about a super rare. You might as well be trying to, cherry pick a super rare out of booster. Okay. So when we see all that, doesn't it make sense why those game elements are great and why they're winning? Because there's no complexity at the lower rarity. And because there's no complexity and the point values are inflated because they are the lowest rarity, they're automatically shoved to the side. And so on occasion you find these, I call them 1.5s. Like I would argue, Moira McTaggart is a 1.5. She's just that tiny bit better that she's useful, and she's not a prime. And those are the figures that like stand out. Like some people will say like Cable is that too. Even though Cable isn't played in high level competitive. I would argue Cable is pretty good with Body Slide. Body Slide is a good power. But when we see that, like, name the last 3 commons that you were like, oh yeah, I really am glad that I had that. And I'm going to be honest with you. It's probably going to be from XSS. Now, this new set, there's some cool stuff. I admit it. That 45-point Captain Marvel, mwah. I don't like Captain Marvel dials most of the time because they're really not that good, except for that Ultra Chase, which was ridiculous. But when you look at Captain Marvel, 45 points, no end dom, hypersonic speed, 10 attack, 3 damage, impervious, and you just have that one click, and she's 4 clicks for 45 points in a 6 range. I'll pay that. So what, she dies? I don't care. So what? She's competitive. All right? So when you look at her versus Tony Iron Man, number 1, you're like, I'm not paying 90 points for that. I understand I can get back to my top click, but I'm not paying 90 points for that. It just doesn't feel right. Because 90 points, I can get a way more efficient chase that could do leaps and bounds more than what this figure can do with the Avengers keyword. Okay? And so this unfortunately pits the higher rarity as either needing to always be expensive, or if they are cheap accessories, having a very limited amount of interactions, making them niche products. And I think that's the problem. Is that you make it too niche, no one plays it. If you keep everything at high point values, folks will complain about why is it this figure in a higher rarity? Why isn't that figure in a higher rarity? Because they're a higher point, a big hitter, bruiser type character or whatever. So, like, all of these factors sort of come into play when we start looking at like this set. And the other element that I don't like is, WizKids not being clear about the object distribution and how you're going to get objects. Now, having a lot of characters that have cool object interactions, I like that. I really do like that. But if you're going to do that, be upfront about your mechanics. Be like, oh yeah, you have to get an Illuminati member to get a gem. Okay, I need an Illuminati member to get a gem. That's how I'm going to get these. If I try to get these on the secondary market, I'm more than likely going to be paying $20 to $30 per gem. And then you start doing the math and you ask yourself, is it better for me to buy blind and trade with a friend? Or is it better for me to go on a secondary market? And if you got to catch them all, I hate to say you're better off buying blind, selling back everything that you're not going to use, and then going in again to buy specifically what you want. It's frustrating. So like I said, I think we are in a spot right now that if we're looking at the monies, if we're realistically looking at the monies, that our overall cost has to be looked at a cost over time. Okay? If I'm paying $40 a month for 10 months to have one of the best teams in heroclix, then this game is affordable. If I'm dropping it all up $400 every month to stay competitive, this game is not affordable. Okay? If you can't afford to drop $40 a month to play this game, I'm sorry. You have other life stuff you need to go and handle. Go handle your other life stuff. Okay? Even if you want to drop and say, I only have $20 extra each month, Edward, and I spend it playing heroclix. That means that you're spending $240 a year playing this game. You better have friends. You better have friends. Just have friends and borrow stuff. And so I leave everybody with this example. And it's one of the biggest, best examples of why this game is accessible. I give you a story of two men. And one is a man I know and the other is a teammate. Man number one is Adam Friedman. Adam Friedman won the national tournament with like a 3-entity team back when the entities were like $300 something each. He had Parallax. He had what was the whale guy? I forgot the whale, the Green Lantern whale guy, and I think he probably had Proselyte. Nope, it was Obsidian. I think it was Obsidian. So he had those three, and he had the Legion of Superheroes chase. Oh gosh, not Lyra. What the hell was her name? Begins with an L. It's like we're going back once again. Way back. Way, way back. Okay, here we go. Slosh, Realms, you suck because you keep thinking that I am a data pirate. Where is her? Where is she? Lydia Mallor. That's it. He had Lydia Mallor and some other stuff. And you know what? He won Nats. And guess what? Everybody hated on him so hard that he won Nats with his functionally, like, I gotta be honest, like over $1,000 team. Now, you know what? He didn't own any of it. He did not own a gosh darn one of those figures. He borrowed them all. All of them. Okay? And what ended up happening, there was a Super Q a little bit later in Tulsa. And my boy, Wes Griffin, shows up and he plays the exact same team that Adam Friedman played. And I was like, I've seen this before. Where have I seen this before at? And he's like, this is what won Nationals and I'm playing it. And I'm like, well, wow. Okay. Let's do this. And we play and I barely win. And he went on to break and a bunch of other stuff in that tournament too. But there are two approaches. You had one person that borrowed and one person that bought. And the outcomes of those two people were different. But both people found a way of competing. Now, again, this is way before teams were a big thing. And so, with all that said and done, I want everybody to know it's like, this game is accessible. How you approach it is different. You need to approach it from a community perspective. I've been pro community stuff for years now because I don't want someone to believe that the only reason why folks are winning is because of elitism. Because it's not. It's not. Most people give away 85 to 90% of their tech. They just put it out there. And the other 10%, a lot of it you could just speculate exists anyway. So, anyway, that's it for today's show. We're going to wrap things up here. You can follow me on the Twitter because YouTube doesn't like YouTubers. And you can know when any new show is out. You can follow me at StartOverPod. It came from outer space and told me, man, in Planet Cloud 932, they have horrible pillows. They just do. Like my Twitter goes throughout all of existence, space and time. Come talks to me, and then sends out, my new show, and then just goes back out into the universe. That's why it's quiet most of the time. When I was salsa dancing all the time, and I was trying to hit up the DJ, my Twitter, it would come back from time to time with a little bit of cosmic radiation on it. But buddy, it likes hanging out there in the space. So yeah, you can email me at startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. That's startingoverpodcast@gmail.com if you wish to opine. Keep it piffy, keep it interesting, keep it Autobot, baby. Let me know, what do you think of this episode? Is the game too expensive? Do you not have friends to share with? Or are your friends mean ones, Mr. Grinch? Maybe. Get a little Ebenezer Scrooge in there, just a little bit too much. Or Scrooge McDuck. Scrooge McDuck. Got a heroclix bin to jump into. All right. You can also Donate to the show at startingoverpodcast at .blogspot.com. And everything goes to making the show better. I've been trying to practice with my drone that I bought for the show to take drone shots, and then in my attempt to practice with it, I broke it. So I broke the propeller, and so I went and ordered propeller parts. I'm actually looking at another drone to potentially use that looks way cooler. But before I go into that, I need to learn a lot of stuff about drones. A lot of stuff about drones. I'm trying to expand my pictures and other things that I can do by having a drone. And so I've had it for a couple of years now, and I flew it inside and crashed, and I was just like, all right, I'm done with this. Came back to it with my nephew because he had a remote control car, and I'm trying to get a hold of it. I'm actually having a pretty good time with it. It's just the fact that I can't get it to come back to me, and every time I try to get it to come back to me, it just floats everywhere else. This sucker it loves dive bombing into trees, and it's frustrating. So I lost more than enough propeller blades to fuel a freaking prop plane army. So yeah, so I'm thinking of getting another drone. I'm not gonna spend over 150, and if I do it at all this summer or not, I don't know. But yeah, that's it. I'm gonna end it there. Thank you all for listening. Also, for anyone that's ever wondering why I don't do a podcast, it's just mainly a hosting issue. I don't make any money off of this show, and I really don't want to pay to host. And if I have financial hardship, you'll always still be getting a show. You can listen to all the back catalog of this show, and you don't have to worry about episodes being deleted because I'm on a free account, or I forgot to pay and I lost all my back catalog. So that's pretty much it. YouTuber makes it suck for YouTubers, and they don't think about their data cost. Yeah, that sounds about right. So that's about it. I'd like to thank you all for listening. And like always, we all have to